Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootleggers, shills, debt slaves, serfs, peasants, vassals, gun owners, and hippies too. I am a useful idiot, and today I would like to talk about gun control. And I'm going to do this in several sections. And of course, my final section is going to put the idea of gun control into the big picture, because that is what I do. So, of course, gun control is now an issue again. Of course, it became an issue during the Gifford shootings a few years ago, and now we have the issue coming up again because of the Aurora shootings. And there, of course, there's a lot of speculation about what can we do about this. And as usual, we will address the symptoms and not the causes. So we won't really talk about a culture that creates this kind of violence. We will address the symptoms after the psychosis is planted in our population. And I was moved by a video by Bertley, a YouTuber I highly recommend. He has a great video called Intentions. And it talks about the very idea that guns are not the issue here, because somebody that wants to kill somebody and somebody that is in that state of mind can find any means very convenient if he wants to kill people, whether you have a club or a gun or a knife or your hands or a broken bottle or a pitchfork or a machete or rat poison, whatever. There's plenty available that people can get if they want to hurt a lot of people. Certainly guns are convenient, and there are things that could be done to make our gun culture more efficient, but government regulation is not one of them. And of course, we have a misunderstanding amongst a lot of people about what gun laws in this country are about and what the Constitution says about guns. And Obama is certainly one who does misunderstand that. Guns are, our right to bear arms is not for hunting. It is to protect us from our government. Our forefathers understood that hundreds of years ago because they lived in a world where they understood that all too well. And just because we live in an era of friendly fascism and pleasant despots doesn't mean that we don't still need to be armed to protect ourselves from our own government and from tyranny. We are the most heavily armed country in the world. We are the last wall between global tyranny and the rest of us. This right is in our Constitution because we have the right to form militias. And my understanding of the Constitution is that means all American citizens have the right to bear arms and to be in militias, either to defend this country or to defend this country from itself. And I guarantee that if there was more armed citizens around, there would be less crime. Do you think the kind of street crime that we see going on now across this country as our cities deteriorate, you think that would be going on if more citizens were armed? If more criminals had to think twice, because there's a lot more people around with guns? And I think so. And I'm not encouraging a frontier of violence where nothing is regulated and shootouts occur regularly. I'm just saying, I would suggest that if there's more armed citizens out there, there might be a air of violence for a very short period, but then the gunfire would die down, the dust would settle, and crime would plummet. But that's just my opinion. And of course, we see that our government will demonize militias. They will demonize gun owners, pretty much the way they demonize smokers and pot smokers. Conveniently, of course, they don't demonize drunks because they're all alcoholics, so that's all right to be one of them. And but I also want to bring up Justice Scalia recently said about the right to bear arms that there's leeway to regulate. So clearly, a member of the Supreme Court has a small grasp of the true intent of the Constitution. And this is something I've talked about in other videos. How can we trust the judgment of a Supreme Court when we have radical agenda from both the right and the left? And Scalia is an example. To be one of the members of the Supreme Court and think that the Constitution allows any regulation of the right to bear arms is a misreading at best. But I want to go into the big picture now, and the big picture is now the irony, the complete irony that our government wants to micromanage the guns of American citizens and wants to rope in random acts of violence by curtailing the gun rights of all citizens. And this is one of the problems in a democracy where the majority rules, where 51% may end up telling the other 49% that you can't have guns. We live in a republic. The Constitution guarantees us the right to bear arms unequivocally. And therefore, no amount of majority in this country should be able to take away all Americans' rights to bear arms. That's what a republic is all about. So now we have the big picture, which is the irony that our government wants to micromanage and control America's rights to bear arms while we are the #1 weapons dealer in the world in global weapon sales. So I wonder if anybody else sees the irony in that our country has the right to bear arms. We are the most heavily armed country in the world, and we have gun deaths, to be sure. But look at the carnage across the globe that our government supplies guns to indiscriminately. And just look at the lineup. We had $410 billion in total arms sales just last year. And we will sell to anybody. And America is #1 in global arms sales. We have over 60% of the market with 44 different companies working out of the United States, which include Lockheed Martin, Boeing, General Dynamics, Raytheon, and Northrop Grumman. And those 5 companies alone account for 40% of global weapons sales. And we had $3 billion of weapons sales to Mexico last year. Our Latin American arms sales between 2005 and 2010 was over $10 billion. And this includes nearly every country in Latin America. We certainly know there's a lot of carnage and violence unleashed in a lot of Latin American countries. And we're selling to Mexico, Colombia, Chile, Brazil, Argentina. We even sell weapons to Venezuela, supposedly our enemy. We even sold $31 million of weapons to Jamaica. Jamaica? Are you serious? And then weapon sales have increased 24% in the last 5 years. So business is good since the global war on terrorism started. And global war business generated since 2001 is $1.6 trillion. I repeat, business is good. And look at all the huge arms sales that are being generated more recently as we move into areas of Africa. So now Libya is awash in U.S. supplied weapons, and who knows where they will end up. Afghanistan is awash in American weapons. Syria is awash in American weapons. Tunisia is awash in American weapons. Iraq is awash in American weapons. We have every country in the world. We're in Mexico and Africa. We sell arms to India. India is the largest arms buyer in the world. Why? Because they're worried about a war with China. So we trump up this war with China, either between the U.S. and China or India and China. It's just another excuse to prop up the military-industrial complex around the world and sell arms to every man, woman, and child on this globe. We even sell guns to Egypt. We sell guns, lots of guns, to Israel. And I think it's interesting, too, that the largest arms sale in world history was in 2010 to Saudi Arabia. That one deal alone was $67 billion. Saudi Arabia bought themselves an army overnight, and part of that army isn't now slaughtering protesters in the streets of Bahrain. So this is what we have to show. We have 1 million rocket-propelled grenade launchers loose in the world because of U.S. and international arms sales. So I go back to my original point. How is it that our government feels like they have to micromanage in the United States and try to blame random acts of violence on guns? I hate to use the cliche, but people kill people. Guns don't kill people. And I just find it truly, truly ironic that they are so concerned about gun violence in this country while we sell arms to anybody that wants them. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.